We have reached the final of the Australian Open 2025, and the final is, of course, Jannik Sinner, the world number one, against Alexander Zverev, the world number two. I predicted Sinner to win the tournament even before the draw for the Australian Open was released. I actually predicted this last year when I did my Grand Slam preview predictions for 2025 at the end of last year, 2024. And I believe in my preview video for the Australian Open after the draw was released, I may have mentioned somewhere that Zverev might be able to reach the final, and he has done that. I never believed that Alcaraz would go to the final, despite what some believed. I had predicted him to lose in the semifinals before the tournament began, and he actually lost even earlier in the quarterfinals. But if he were to have come through that quarterfinal match against Novak Djokovic, I would have picked him to lose in the semifinals, most likely against Zverev. So I never believed that Carlos Alcaraz would go to the final of the Australian Open this year, and he did not. Sinner, I did believe, would go to the final and win, and he has made it to the final. Now I will give my prediction for how I believe the final match will unfold. So the head-to-head is 4-2 in favor of Alexander Zverev. On hard courts, it is 3-1 to Zverev, and in Grand Slams, it is 2-1 to Zverev. So Zverev actually has a winning record over Jannik Sinner. Not too many players have that. Well, I mean, I guess it's not too few, but of course it's few because he is the world number one. But Zverev, nonetheless, he does have a winning record against Jannik Sinner on hard courts in Grand Slams and overall. So, looking at the stats for, well, their last match was, they only played one match last year in 2024, which was the year that Sinner became a beast and destroyed almost everybody on the tour. Only lost 6 times, and 3 of them were against Alcaraz. And he only played Zverev once that year, which was in Cincinnati on hard courts, and Sinner barely won. A very tight 3-set battle, 7-6, 5-7, 7-6. So that was a very close match that could have gone either way. So Sinner has not had an easy time winning against Zverev, even though he's only played him once last year when he became a beast. He still had a very tough time against Zverev. He barely won. That was one of his toughest matches of the year. And an interesting thing about that was that Sinner, he is a bot. We all know he is a bot. He is barely even a human. He doesn't really have like feelings or emotions, because to have that would prevent him from being as good as possible. So in order to not feel any pressure or anything, he's basically deleted all of his emotions, and he has become a robot. If he has not always been a robot. He might not have been always a robot when he was like a teenager, but he has become a robot so he can have maximum efficiency in his mental game on the court. So he does not show much emotion because of that, but there have been some instances where he's shown a little emotion, and when he does, it'll be like, wow, the bot showing emotion. Because the most he kind of does is kind of just a fist pump like this. That's basically what he does in like his matches. If he even gets, yeah, that in most of his matches just go like that. That's like the most emotion he usually shows. But he has shown like slightly more emotion in this tournament actually. But interestingly, last year after he beat Zverev, he had one of his biggest shows of emotion that entire year. He was so happy that he beat him in such that close match, and believe this was also against, he did this kind of thing against Rublev in the 2024 Australian Open quarterfinals when he was down 5-2 in the tiebreak. I believe it was the second set tiebreak, and he won 5 points in a row to win that tiebreak 7-5. He kind of went like, oh. and that's like one of the biggest shows of emotion that he has, and he did that when he finally beat Zverev in that semifinal in Cincinnati last year. So it shows that he does not think it is easy to play Zverev and to beat Zverev, right? And now let's look at the stats. So Zverev, he defeated Djokovic in the semifinal after winning the first set in a tiebreak 7-6. Djokovic retired from the match due to his hamstring injury, and I did actually predict I did predict Zverev to win this match, and which he did, but he did not do it in the way that I predicted, of course, which was in 5 sets. So Zverev did win like I predicted, but he won due to the retirement of Djokovic after the first set. So we never know what would have happened after that if Djokovic was continued that match and or if Djokovic was more healthy. So, but nonetheless, Zverev is obviously through to the final. So stats are a little bit skewed, of course, because it was an incomplete match. Only one set was played. But even looking at those stats, Zverev served 76% first serves in. That is amazing. But Zverev is known for serving a high percentage of first serves in, so that is like a pretty normal thing for him. What you expect from Zverev. He hit 24 winners and 15 unforced errors, so he did 9 more winners and unforced errors, which is pretty good, even though it was only for one set. Interestingly, I was watching the match actually, and he did not do very well on the breakpoint conversions. 0 out of 5. There was one game early in the set where he had like 3 or 4 breakpoints, and he didn't convert any of them. But the way that he did it was not good. He kind of just missed neutral shots that he should not miss. So that was a bit disappointing on his part. But nonetheless, he did end up getting the set and ultimately the match, as Djokovic had to pull out. Now on to Sinner's stats. He defeated Ben Shelton in straight sets, 7-6, 6-2, 6-2. I predicted him to win in 4 sets, but obviously I always knew that Ben Shelton would never win this match. He did not stand a chance against Jannik Sinner. But he actually could have taken a set and made this a 4-set match, because he had 2 set points in that first set, but Sinner just stayed consistent and Shelton was not able to convert either of those 2 set points. So this did end up being a straight set victory for Sinner pretty routinely, pretty comfortably. And now he has won 12 sets in a row against Ben Shelton. So not very good news for Shelton in terms of his record against Sinner, but to be fair, almost everybody is struggling with Sinner unless your name is Alcaraz. So cannot blame Ben Shelton that much there. Sinner's stats, he served 57% first serves in. That is not that high, but Sinner is not known for serving that many first serves in because he beats everyone from the baseline, as we all know. That is kind of the average amount, percentage of first serves that you expect from him, around 57% or so. He hit 23 winners and 26 unforced errors, actually, so he did not do that well in that department. 3 more unforced errors than winners. But Shelton, he hit 27 winners and 55 unforced errors, so he did 28 more unforced errors than winners. And you'll never beat Sinner with those kind of statistics. So even though Sinner didn't do that well in the winners unforced errors department, it was not disastrous, I would not say, but Shelton was disastrous in that department. So, of course, Sinner was still able to win fairly comfortably. Rather comfortably, I should say. So who do I will win this match? Who do I believe will win this match? Like I said, the head-to-head is 4-2 for Alexander Zverev, and his statistics, albeit for one set only against Djokovic, were better than Jannik Sinner's statistics in his semifinals against Ben Shelton. At least those 2 key statistics that I like to point out. But I believe the key thing here that we have to note is that the laws of the universe dictate that Alexander Zverev can never win a Grand Slam. It just cannot happen for reasons that have been made clear. He has made his reputation as someone who chokes in the big moments, plays better against lower ranked players, and does challenge higher ranked players, but ultimately chokes and ends up playing passively. And he has just never been shown to be mentally strong enough in these biggest situations, which is why he is love and 2 in Grand Slam finals. Sinner, on the other hand, is 2 and love in Grand Slam finals. So both of them have played 2 Grand Slam finals, but Sinner has won both of his, and Zverev has lost both of his. Now, do I believe that this will change and Zverev will win his first Grand Slam? No, I do not. Because I simply cannot trust Zverev, despite the fact that he has handled Sinner well in the past. I just don't trust Zverev on these big matches. I can trust him to put up a challenge, but I can never trust him in a Grand Slam final to really close it out and seal the deal. And that is why I will most likely never pick Zverev to win a Grand Slam final. Unless perhaps he is facing someone whom I also never expected to win a Grand Slam. And then I will be forced to make a decision as to someone who I didn't think would ever win a slam clearly has to win now. But since we have someone who has proven that he can do it in Jannik Sinner, Zverev has not proven that he can do it. I do not believe he will do it. And that is why I am going with Jannik Sinner to win this match. But it may not be easy, so I will say that Zverev can push him. He certainly can if he is playing good tennis. So I will say that Jannik Sinner wins this final Australian Open 2025 in 5 sets against Alexander Zverev. And after that, if that result does occur, but only if Sinner defeats Zverev in 5 sets. If he defeats him in 4 sets or 3 sets, I will keep watching tennis. But if Sinner defeats Zverev in 5 sets, I might stop watching tennis, because I don't like when an underdog in a Grand Slam final gets so close to winning, but still loses. That is perhaps the most frustrating thing in tennis for me, when they give me hope. In the final, they only need to win that match, and they still lose. Daniil Medvedev has caused me to stop watching tennis on 2 occasions. It could have been more, but it was those 2, and I think you know what I'm talking about, were the absolute worst. So I hope that, well, I mean, I would like Zverev to win, but I will not predict him to win. I will predict him to lose in 5 sets, unfortunately, frustratingly. And that will be my final prediction. So I believe that Sinner will win this year's Australian Open, like I said even before the draw came out. And Sinner will be at 3 Grand Slam titles, and Alcaraz at 4. So things gonna get interesting at the French Open. You know, Sinner will have the opportunity to tie Alcaraz's Grand Slam count, and then the discussions between their fanboys will become even more intense. So, I mean, if he does tie that. But I will most likely predict Alcaraz to win the French Open, just like I did in the beginning of my year predictions. So, yes, that is my final prediction. Sinner to defeat Zverev in this final in 5 sets. Someone asked, will Alcaraz and Sinner go undefeated in Grand Slam finals until they face each other? And I think that may well be the case. The tennis world is waiting for the first final between Alcaraz and Sinner at a Grand Slam. We have not seen it yet. They have faced in Grand Slam semifinals, Grand Slam quarterfinals, ATP 500 finals. I don't know if they've been faced in a Masters final, actually. Maybe only semifinals or quarterfinals. But, yeah, the tennis world is certainly waiting for this Sinkraz, as they like to call it, major final, which we have not yet seen. I knew it would not happen at this major, though some believed that it would. I did not predict that, but it can certainly eventually happen one day, and that will be an interesting match to predict. Finally, let's see who loses their first Grand Slam final. Sinner is 2-love in Grand Slam finals. Alcaraz is remarkably 4-love. So let's see which of them loses a Grand Slam final first. So far, neither of them have done it. But so far, getting back to this year's Australian Open final, once again, my prediction is Jannik Sinner to win in 5 sets. And after that, we'll see if I keep watching tennis or not.